Hello everyone, I'm Kristen Oakes-White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
We begin our show with a look back to 1 year ago when torrential rainfall caused a flood never seen before here in South Louisiana. A whopping 31 inches of rain fell in 12 hours in some parts of Livingston Parish, flooding in 90% of the homes.
While urban and suburban areas like the one in which I live were hardest hit, rural areas were devastated as well. TWILA's Neil Melancon takes us back to the flood of 2016 and shows us where we are now.
For most people in South Louisiana hit hard by last August's floods, this was the reality. Miles of soaked homes, destroyed businesses, and precious possessions lost to a flood never seen in this area before. Amy Sibley of Walker tried to help her neighbors in Livingston Parish, and what she found was a lot of heartbreak.
While talking to several people in this particular community that I'm standing in, people got 1.5 to 2 foot of water in their home, and they're still living in those homes. They've taken out the bare necessities that they could afford, but they're still sleeping on molded mattresses that were soaked and saturated. Their homes, they haven't been able to gut them because they do not have the funds or the means to do so.
One of the hardest hit areas was in Tangipahoa Parish, which saw not one but 2 floods in 2016. You might remember William Fletcher, who earlier this year showed us how rising floodwaters from the Tangipahoa River took all the topsoil from his strawberry fields.
I mean, the ground that I'm standing on here is literally right across the street, right across my driveway from the berry fields, and all this grass washed out of fields that we had bush hogged last summer.
Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain said damage from the flood was in the billions, and thus far they've only gotten about half of what they've asked for.
And we ended up with about 1.6 billion of the 4 billion we'd asked for. And of that, we had about $10 million, for agricultural recovery.
These are some of William Fletcher's fields today, where he's growing a cover crop of field peas to help fix some nitrogen back into his strip soil. Like his neighbor Eric Morrow just down the road, he's had some trouble getting crops in the field. It's not like last year's flooding, but the rain is just constant. I'm standing out here in Eric Morrow's summer vegetable and strawberry farm here in Ponchatoula, and as you can see, it's a little wet out here on this August afternoon, pretty typical. What wasn't typical was, of course, last year's torrential rainfalls that led to flooding. All of this area that you see was underwater at one point. So, of course, this rain and this summer shower is a lot better than the alternative. But as Eric Morrow will tell you himself, it's not easy to get crops in the ground when it's like this.
We had we had too much rain in June. But we're kind of coming out now. We're getting a little rain this evening. We're getting ready for our fall plantings of all our squash, zucchini, cucumbers, and stuff like that.
And just like recovery in the city, things are definitely better for these growers since a year has passed. Still, everyone is hoping for sunnier skies to come back soon. I drove through a really bad rain on the way back from Eric Morrow's farm, and I learned that when I got back, that same storm had spawned a waterspout on Lake Pontchartrain just a little while later. And guys, I remember this time last year, and I gotta tell you, if I don't ever pull out another thing of drywall, that's too soon.
Well, you and your wife Sherry had done a real number on my house along with the rest of our Farm Bureau family. I mean, it's amazing to see how many people a year later have actually come back. My neighborhood is pretty much back to normal, but not everybody is back in. Not everybody is whole. My brother, he had 18 inches of water in his house. He still doesn't have everything done in his place. I mean, contractors are just overloaded right now.
A lot of those people, I think, especially the ones we saw in Denham Springs, may not ever come back, but it is good to see the recovery. One amazing fact is that as much water as we saw last year, this August is actually wetter.
I was going to say that because you don't have the residential damage that you had last August, but I'm worried that the farm damage is going to be maybe just as much, because there's rain in sight for the next 15 days.
And you know, a lot of that we may not even see yet, because what happens if it keeps raining and the soybeans can't come out of the field?
Oh, please don't talk about that.
What happens when those cotton bolls open and it starts raining on them? It's not good news.
It's going to be tough. Thank you very much, Neil Melancon.